Are the 49ers bad?
As a team, there's talent. They have some good talent. They have some really good talent.
That's an interesting distinction. You work in finance, right?
Yes.
There must be people in your field that are very talented but aren't necessarily good at what they do because they lack focus, preparation, discipline. I mean, you see that in every field. Talent doesn't necessarily guarantee a damn thing.
Yeah, exactly. As you see, right, as you see this year, they have a very talented roster. They're playing down. They're not playing up to their potential, which is a coaching thing. I mean, I was a basketball coach for 10 years. If I had a superior team and we lost, that means I didn't do my job as a coach.
Right.
And that's what you're seeing right now. So are they a bad team? Yeah, right now they are a bad team. But they have superior talent to most teams, including most of the teams they're losing to.
Which makes it even worse. And I think that's why people are finally starting to look at Kyle, maybe even his own players, because I think it's dawning on everyone. There is just way too much talent for this team to be scoring 23 points. That Chiefs defense wasn't good. So let's just take a big picture look, because I think people got a little too lost in the details last week when they got Christian McCaffrey. Nice player, nice addition. This team has just gotten blown out 2 weeks in a row. They've lost by 35 points the last 2 weeks. They lost by 2 touchdowns to Atlanta, who sucks. They're rebuilding. They've also lost to 2 rookie head coaches in Nathaniel Hackett and Matt Eberflus. This is a team that squeaked into the playoffs last year. The only reason they squeaked in is because Deebo Samuel went into a whole nother gear that we have not seen from him this year. So I'm not even certain that the Niners are going to make the playoffs. Like their schedule looks easy, but are they going to beat the Raiders? I mean, they lost to Atlanta. Like the Raiders were much more competitive against the Chiefs than the Niners were. How good are? To me, I mean, we really don't know about the Niners. They faced one good team and gotten blown out, and they've lost to bad teams too. They look like they stink right now, and they look like they know it. And again, I think it's a coaching issue because they do have tons of talent.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be a coaching issue. They have tons of talent. You know, over time, teams just get in a funk with the same coach. They need to switch it up. It's why, college players, at most they play 4 years for the same team. Kyle Shanahan, he's going on his 6th year. He still has a losing record. Everybody's here because of him. There's no excuses as far as the roster concerned, from quarterback to I don't care what position you're looking at. You can't excuse Kyle Shanahan because of a position or a player on this team because it's Kyle Shanahan's team. The offensive scheme, everything is Kyle Shanahan. Yeah. So this is all about him. And honestly, this is the closest I've come to just say it's time to just start fresh.
And it's interesting what you say, like, maybe his voice has worn off. Like maybe the message isn't getting across anymore. This team's been together for 6 years. Some of these guys have been there the whole way through. Jimmy, Kittle, Juszczyk. They didn't win a Super Bowl. Usually you keep a team together because it's a championship team and you feel like you need to. That's what Pete Carroll, that was the trap he got in Seattle. Like, we won a Super Bowl. We got to keep this team together. Well, this team didn't win that Super Bowl, and they've been constantly on this revenge tour for years. Even Pete Carroll figured out, I got to start over. So now he turned over the roster, has a young team, and they have like a fresh, positive team that's good. Meanwhile, the Niners are still trying to prove something with the same team that couldn't get it done when they were all in their primes 4 years ago. It's very strange. It does. I feel like this is what you said. He's kind of losing his touch.
Yeah, his grip. People want to blame it on Jimmy Garoppolo. Before the season started, who would take Geno Smith over Jimmy Garoppolo? Probably nobody.
No one.
They were scared to let him go because they didn't want Seattle to sign him.
Right.
I mean, could they have traded for Geno Smith, Jimmy Garoppolo, Geno Smith? Probably. But my point is that there are other coaches out there that are getting more from Geno Smith. Pete Carroll's getting more from Geno Smith than Kyle Shanahan's been able to get from Jimmy Garoppolo in 6 years.
Yeah.
There's a common theme here. And at some point, and the other thing that bothers me are people like, you can't file Kyle Shanahan because he's going to be hired somewhere else. So what? Like,
yeah, let him go screw up some other team. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes you're in a relationship with a beautiful woman, but she's not right for you. And you're going to break up there. She's going to get with somebody else, but it wasn't the right relationship for you. So
sure,
that's what matters. It doesn't matter what they're going to do afterwards.
And what's funny is, it is a talented team. If Kyle Shanahan weren't here and Jim Harbaugh were the coach, they'd be winning. And what's funny is people be like, oh, well, Harbaugh inherited a stacked team. Yeah, but he knew what to do with it. You know what I mean? Just like how Steve Kerr knew what to do with that team and Mark Jackson didn't. And a lot of people thought that Kyle Shanahan was the Steve Kerr of football in the Bay Area, but it turns out that he's been Mark Jackson with a very long leash and a very good PR team. And I think finally it's all crumbling down. Now, if they beat the Rams next week, that'll change things. But if they lose to the Rams next week and go into the bye week on a 3-game losing streak, I don't think his stock will ever have been as low as it would be in that instance.
Yeah,
So,
agreed.
I don't know.
Absolutely agreed. Yeah, it's troubling, man. If they lose to the Rams, they're in bad shape. And every single week, Kyle Shanahan loses. More people turn on him, and it's going to continue, especially if they lose to the Rams next week. And that's an NFC West game. That's an NFC game. I think a lot of people are just assuming that the 49ers are going to make the playoffs. But I'm not. Like you said about the Raiders, the games the Raiders have lost have been close, and we've seen the 49ers have lost to bad teams that when we looked at the schedule, they're gonna beat the Falcons, they're gonna beat the like all these teams that they lost to, and they're not winning those games.
If they miss the playoffs, do you think they'll fire Kyle?
So I think they should fire Kyle if they miss the playoffs. I think what I've been saying for a few months now is that, what I've been saying since Trey Lance went down is that Kyle Shanahan's going to be able to say, I didn't get to have a season with Trey Lance, and Trey Lance is injured. I had to go with Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's going to be his excuse. So I think Jed York's going to buy that excuse, and I think no matter what, Kyle Shanahan has one more year.
The one thing Jed needs to look at is, what are your options to replace Kyle this year? And what are your options the next year? Because this year, Sean Payton's available, Ken Dorsey's available. There are some more guys. Kafka. There are guys who are interesting, guys who have developed quarterbacks. If you could get one of those guys, maybe you strike while the iron is hot. Because again, you have a stacked roster. I think a lot of people might feel they could get success with this team. Something to think about.
Yep.
C. Charlie says, I'm very critical of Kyle, but the question is, who do you replace him with? Bring back Harbaugh? That's what I'm saying. I think there probably are good options this year. People say, oh, you want to go back to Tom Sula or Chip Kelly? Well, that's silly because those aren't the options. There actually are good options, and they have a roster that might entice someone. It's worth investigating. I mean, you don't think Sean Payton, with all this talent, you don't think he could score points? Or Ken Dorsey? I think they could score more than 23 points.
Yeah. I'm on Ken Dorsey right now. That's my
yeah.
thought.
I mean, he's a good coordinator and a good quarterback coach, and he played in the league, and he looks like a leader. I mean, he looks like kind of the next Harbaugh, but maybe
he was from the Bay Area. He was drafted by the 49ers. Like he has all that.
It's true. Derek Odell says, with the NFC the way it is, what record will a team need to make the playoffs? I'm not sure the Niners will make the playoffs as a wild card. You might need a 10-7 record to make a wild card berth, but I don't know. The question is the NFC. Can they win the NFC West? All of a sudden, the Seahawks look better than we thought, and the Cardinals got Hopkins back. They generally win with him. Everyone was focused on the Rams. Maybe the Niners and Rams are the two teams that are going to be third and fourth in this division. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Where's the apology tweet from Jed? Yeah, he doesn't do that anymore. It's too bad. Mark says, man, I knew we was going to lose, but like that in front of Jim is embarrassing, man. Can we at least bring him back as an OC or something? Yeah, it was an embarrassing loss. The safety, the interception was just embarrassing. The penalties. Bunless Hot Dog says, I wonder if our offensive coordinator regrets running his QB1 between the tackles yet. Also, Bench McGlinchey is the equivalent of a wet fart.
What's funny is that the best offensive lineman so far this year on the 49ers is Aaron Banks.
Shout out Aaron Banks. I think I was wrong about him. He's playing pretty well. I hope I was wrong about him. Bay Area kid. Matthew Sanders says, dude, if you basically can't win, if you have a 3-point deficit in the fourth quarter, that isn't injury or talent or execution. That is bad philosophy. Thank you, Matthew. What are they, 1-30 now when they're down by 3, when they start the fourth quarter down by 3 or more points? That's systemic. That's the coach, man. Enough. He's never going to fix this issue.
Someone pointed out, I forget, I wish I had that tweet, but their record's not much better when they're down at halftime. It's I think they only have a few more wins than their fourth quarter record. So when they're down at halftime, they have like a 33% winning record or less than that.
That's disgusting.
Yep.
Ant-Man Felix says, not sure if firing Kyle will help at this point. What coach will want to come here with no draft capital? He still needs to be held accountable. It's a good question. He really did
I got a solution that nobody wants to hear about that.
Trade Kyle.
That's one.
I don't know what he's worth anymore, man. His stock plummets every week, but what else?
Nobody wants to hear it. I'm going to get killed for this.
Say it.
Nick Bosa.
Ooh, interesting.
I mean, Nick Bosa's an amazing pass rusher, and you guys are going to rip me for this. I get it. I understand. But from a business standpoint, how much are they going to be paying Nick Bosa? 31 million, 30 million?
That's quarterback money.
And you could trade him and get multiple first-round picks most likely. Or
I'm open-minded. I think I might do that too. Game Time says lost McDaniels. Kyle now equals Nolan. I've seen a lot of people comparing him to Jeff Fisher, like the offensive Jeff Fisher, was in the Super Bowl, has some kind of like aura about him, but he's just relentlessly mediocre. Relentlessly. To put it nicely, Jaskell, $5. Thank you very much. Ethan, imagine if Andy Reid had this roster. I disagree with your take last night on the roster being misevaluated. It is a Super Bowl roster with a terrible head coach. That's interesting. Well, they're not a Super Bowl team then.
Andy Reid, that's the thing that's bugging me. Is like Jimmy Garoppolo is a C+ quarterback.
Yeah.
We all know that, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can't make the most of him.
Right.
Kyle's not making the most of Jimmy Garoppolo.
No. We used to think that he was propping Jimmy Garoppolo up, but now it's not that case. Joey Mellon says it's Monday, October 24th, and the Pat McAfee show still sucks. Hey, man, you said it. Jaskell says, can't wait to see what Ken Dorsey or Jim Harbaugh can do with this team next season. Jed has options. He just has to be, on the ball.